You don't actually want to be happy. That's the first truth, the one you keep avoiding, the one that follows you into quiet rooms and stares back at you when the noise fades. Because if happiness were truly what you wanted, you would have chosen it by now. But you haven't. And somewhere, beneath all your explanations, your justifications, your carefully constructed reasons, you know that. You say you want peace, yet you create storms. You say you want clarity, yet you chase confusion. You say you want love, yet you recoil the moment it comes close enough to touch you. There is something in you that resists happiness, not accidentally, not unconsciously, but deliberately. And the more you deny it, the more power it has. Dostoevsky understood this long before you did, not as an observer, not as a philosopher safely distanced from human chaos, but as a man who stood face to face with his own contradictions and did not look away. He once stood before a firing squad, blindfolded, waiting to die. In those final moments, when every illusion of control was stripped away, something strange happened. Not relief, not clarity. Something closer to terror, but sharper, more alive. And then, at the last second, he was spared. What do you think happens to a man after that? Do you think he spends the rest of his life chasing comfort? Or do you think he becomes obsessed with something far more dangerous, something far more real? Dostoevsky did not write about happiness. He wrote about the parts of you that would rather suffer than live a shallow life. He wrote about the voice inside you that whispers, "I could be content, but I won't be." And if you're honest, you've heard that voice too. You hear it when things are finally going well, when life feels stable, predictable, safe. That's when it begins. A subtle restlessness, a quiet dissatisfaction, a sense that something is missing but you can't quite name it. And then you start to interfere.
You overthink a relationship that was perfectly fine. You question feelings that didn't need questioning. You pull away from people who cared about you, not because they hurt you, but because they didn't. You tell yourself you're being cautious, rational, thoughtful. But beneath all of that, there is something else. A refusal to accept simple happiness. Dostoevsky called this out with brutal honesty in Notes from Underground. Not through a hero, not through someone admirable, but through a man who is painfully aware of his own irrationality and chooses it anyway. This man does not want what is good for him. He actively rejects it. He sabotages himself, not because he's confused, but because he cannot bear the idea of living a life governed by logic, comfort, and predictable happiness. He says something unsettling, something that cuts deeper than any philosophy. What if humans don't actually want what's best for them? What if we don't want happiness, but something else entirely? You see it in your own life, if you're willing to look. Think about the moments when you knew exactly what to do and didn't do it. You knew staying would be better, but you left. You knew silence would bring peace, but you spoke. You knew patience would help, but you rushed. And afterward, you felt that familiar mixture of regret and something else. Something almost satisfying. Because in that moment, you proved something to yourself. You proved that you are not predictable, not mechanical, not reducible to logic. You proved your freedom. And that freedom is not gentle. It does not lead you toward happiness. It leads you toward choice, even when that choice hurts you, especially when it hurts you. There is a strange pride in self-destruction, a quiet voice that says,
At least this is mine. At least this pain was chosen. At least this chaos belongs to me. And this is where happiness begins to lose its appeal. Because happiness is simple. It asks you to accept things as they are,
to be present, to let go of unnecessary struggle. But meaning demands something else entirely. It demands confrontation. It demands depth. It demands that you wrestle with yourself until something real emerges. And you know this. You feel it in the moments when life becomes too easy, when everything aligns, when there is nothing left to fight, and suddenly you feel empty. Not because something is wrong, but because something is missing. The struggle, the tension, the sense that you are moving towards something that matters. Without that, happiness begins to feel hollow, like a pleasant distraction rather than a destination. And so you create problems, not consciously, not deliberately, but inevitably. You pick at things that didn't need fixing. You reopen wounds that were beginning to heal. You revisit conversations in your head, searching for flaws that weren't there before. Because without conflict, you feel lost. This is the paradox you live inside. You want peace, but you cannot live without tension. You want happiness, but you are drawn to meaning, and meaning is rarely comfortable. It lives in the difficult choices, the unresolved questions, the moments where you are forced to confront parts of yourself you would rather ignore. Dostoevsky understood that humans are not designed for simple happiness. We are designed for something far more complex. We are creatures of contradiction. We want clarity, but we create confusion. We want love, but we fear intimacy. We want stability, but we sabotage consistency. And at the center of all of this is the need to feel that our lives matter. Not just feel good, not just feel easy, but feel meaningful. And meaning does not come from comfort. It comes from friction, from resistance, from the struggle between who you are and who you could become. This is why you stay in situations longer than you should, why you hold on to people who drain you, why you revisit thoughts that bring you pain. It's not because you enjoy suffering. It's because suffering feels real. It feels like something is happening. It feels like you are alive. Happiness, in comparison, can feel passive, like something that happens to you rather than something you earn. And deep down, you don't trust anything you didn't fight for. So you fight, even when there is no enemy, even when the only thing you're fighting is yourself. Consider the way you approach love. At first, it's simple. You meet someone. There's a connection, a spark, a sense of possibility. And for a moment, everything feels effortless. But then something shifts. You begin to question, not because there is a problem, but because there isn't. You wonder if it's too easy, too calm, too stable. And suddenly, you start looking for cracks. You analyze their words, their tone, their timing. You interpret silence as distance, distance as rejection. You create narratives where none existed. And before you realize it, the relationship is no longer about connection. It's about tension, because tension feels like meaning. It feels like something important is at stake, and without it, you don't know how to feel. This is not accidental. This is the underground man living inside you. The part of you that rejects simple happiness because it feels too predictable, too controlled, too close to something mechanical. He would rather suffer than live a life where everything makes sense. Because in suffering, there is unpredictability. In suffering, there is freedom. In suffering,
There is something raw and undeniable. And you carry that same instinct. You resist anything that feels too perfect, because perfection feels like a trap, a system, a script you didn't write, and you would rather destroy it than live inside it, even if it means losing something good, especially if it means losing something good, because losing something good proves something. It proves that you are still in control, that you can choose chaos over order.
That you are not bound by comfort, that you are free. But freedom, in this sense, is dangerous. It does not guide you toward what is best, it guides you toward what is yours. And sometimes, what is yours is pain. This is where the idea of happiness begins to collapse, because happiness assumes something simple, that humans want to feel good. But you are not simple. You want to feel real. And reality is not always pleasant. It is sharp, contradictory, unresolved. It demands that you confront things you would rather avoid, your fears, your regrets, your contradictions, the parts of yourself that don't align. And meaning is found there, not in the absence of pain, but in the presence of truth. This is why moments of deep meaning often come wrapped in discomfort, a difficult conversation that changes everything, a realization that shatters your previous understanding, a loss that forces you to redefine who you are. These are not happy moments, but they are meaningful. They leave a mark. They transform you. They make your life feel significant. And if you had to choose between a life that is consistently pleasant and a life that is deeply meaningful, would you really choose happiness? Or would you choose something harder, something heavier, something that demands more from you? You already know the answer, because you've been choosing it all along. Every time you complicate something simple, every time you resist an easy path, every time you lean into something that challenges you instead of something that comforts you, you are choosing meaning, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. Dostoevsky didn't offer solutions to this. He didn't tell you how to fix it, because it's not something to be fixed. It's something to be understood. You are not broken because you resist happiness. You are human. But there is a danger in not seeing this clearly, because if you don't understand why you do this, you will continue to sabotage yourself without knowing why. You will call it bad luck, poor timing, external circumstances. But the pattern will repeat. Different faces, same outcome. Different situations, same feeling. Because the conflict is not outside you, it's inside you. And until you face it, it will control you. The question is not how to eliminate this tension. You can't. The question is whether you are aware of it, whether you can see the moment when you begin to turn against your own happiness, the moment when you start creating problems where there were none, the moment when you choose complexity over simplicity, not because it's better, but because it feels more real. Awareness does not remove the impulse, but it changes your relationship with it. It allows you to pause, to recognize what is happening, to ask yourself a question that is far more difficult than it seems. Do I actually want to be happy right now? Or do I want something else? And if the answer is something else, what is it? Meaning, control, freedom, proof that you are not predictable, proof that your life is not shallow. Because once you see it, clearly, you can no longer pretend it isn't there. And that is where things become uncomfortable. Because now, every choice carries weight. You can no longer say, I didn't know. You know. You see the pattern forming in real time. You see yourself reaching for conflict. You see yourself pulling away from peace. And you have to decide, not once, but over and over again. Do you follow the impulse, or do you resist it? And neither choice is easy, because resisting it can feel like losing something, like denying a part of yourself that craves depth, intensity, and meaning. And following it can lead you back into cycles you already know too well. There is no simple resolution, only awareness, only the ongoing tension between what is easy and what is meaningful, between what brings comfort and what brings depth. And maybe this is the real truth you've been avoiding. Happiness is not the highest goal.
It never was. It is too fragile, too dependent on circumstances, too easily disrupted. Meaning, on the other hand, endures, even in suffering, even in chaos, even in the moments when everything feels like it's falling apart. Meaning is what allows you to say, "This matters," even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. And that is why you keep returning to it, why you cannot fully commit to a life of simple happiness, why something in you resists it, questions it, disrupts it. Because you are not looking for something that feels good. You are looking for something that feels true. And truth is rarely comfortable. So you stand at this quiet intersection between ease and depth, between peace and tension, between happiness and meaning. And you hesitate, because now you understand something you didn't want to admit before, that the life you keep imagining, the peaceful, happy, uncomplicated life, might not be the life you would actually choose. Because without struggle, without contradiction, without the weight of something that matters, would it feel like your life at all? Or would it feel like something empty, something distant, something that never truly belonged to you? And now the question changes. It is no longer, how do I become happy? It becomes something far more unsettling. If happiness were placed in your hands, if everything finally aligned, if the chaos disappeared, if the tension faded, if the struggle ended, would you accept it? Or would you, quietly, almost instinctively, find a way to break it?